For 28 days, I stared down a wall of flames, saving homes that weren't mine. Back at my home, my wife was lighting a different kind of fire. The email was short. Consider this goodbye. The life we built, gone. Our savings, vanished. The house I thought was waiting, already sold, to a company owned by my own brother-in-law. They thought the smoke and distance blinded me. They thought I'd just crumble. But fighting wildfires teaches you one thing: always know your escape route. And mine led straight to the truth. The quiet hum of the planer is a world away from the roar of a wildfire crowning through timber. Here in my workshop, sawdust smells clean, predictable. It settles gently, unlike the choking ash that coats everything for miles after a blaze. It's been 6 months since the Granite Creek fire, the one that kept me out on the line for 28 days straight. 28 days breathing smoke, eating chili, sleeping on the hard ground, pushing back flames that threatened entire towns. Now, I spend my days sanding reclaimed redwood, turning scarred wood into something smooth and useful. It's peaceful, almost too peaceful sometimes, a stark contrast to the life I navigated not just on the fire line, but back home, though I didn't fully grasp it then. Building things helps keep the thoughts at bay, the ones that smolder long after the embers are out. Fighting fire is a strange calling. You run towards what everyone else runs from. You put yourself between destruction and someone else's life, someone else's home, people you'll never meet. There's a purity in it, a brutal clarity. You face the beast, you read the wind, you make split-second calls where hesitation can cost lives. You learn to trust your gut, your training, the crew beside you. But what prepares you for an enemy already inside your walls? Someone you trusted implicitly, someone who smiled and waved you off to danger while sharpening a knife behind her back. The betrayal felt like a backdraft, sudden and devastating, sucking the air right out of my lungs in a way no wildfire ever had. That kind of heat doesn't just scorch, it melts you down from the inside. It makes you wonder about the battles people fight silently, doesn't it? The ones behind closed doors, masked by everyday routines. Does fighting your own hidden battles ever feel harder than facing down an external, visible inferno? Share your experiences or thoughts on this in the comments below. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the first line of defense. We all carry something, I suppose, burdens unseen by those around us. Mine just happened to erupt while I was miles away, preoccupied with a different kind of war, one I thought was the only front I needed to worry about at that moment, completely oblivious to the calculated arson attack on my own life unfolding back in the quiet suburbs I was fighting to protect. I met Sarah during an off-season, introduced by a mutual friend at a summer barbecue. She wasn't flashy, had this calm presence I found grounding after the chaos of fire season. She worked in hospital administration, organized, efficient, seemed genuinely impressed by what I did, or at least the idea of it. She admired the dedication, she said, the willingness to risk it all. We clicked quickly, a whirlwind romance built over hikes, shared meals, and long talks about futures that seemed perfectly aligned. Looking back, maybe I projected the stability I craved onto her calm surface, seeing a safe harbor without checking how deep the water truly was beneath the docks. We married within a year, a simple ceremony overlooking the lake. Her brother, Liam, was the best man. He was always around, affable, quick with a joke, working in various business ventures that always seemed promising but never quite solidified. He clapped me on the back at the wedding, welcomed me to the family with a wide grin. Sarah often mentioned how close they were, how he looked out for her. I saw him as just family. An easygoing guy, maybe a bit of a dreamer, but harmless. We bought the house a couple of years later, a modest ranch-style place needing some work, but it was ours. We painted walls, planted a garden, hosted Thanksgiving. It felt solid, real. The foundation of everything I thought I was building, brick by ordinary brick, day by trusting day. The call for the Granite Creek deployment came suddenly. A complex of lightning strikes had exploded in drought-stricken forestland, threatening multiple communities. It was an all-hands situation, pulling crews from all over the state. I packed my red bag, the familiar ritual feeling heavier this time. Sarah seemed worried more than usual. She clung to me at the door, told me please be safe, her voice tight. I reassured her, the standard promises of checking in when possible, of focusing, of coming home. Communication would be spotty, I warned her, long hours, remote locations. She nodded, said she understood, just focus on the job. I kissed her goodbye, the scent of her perfume mixing with the faint, ever-present smell of wood smoke on my old jacket. That last hug felt different in hindsight, of course. Tighter maybe, but also brittle? Like holding something that might crack. Was there a flicker of something else in her eyes behind the worry? Doubt? Guilt? Or am I just painting the past with the colors of what I know now? During those intense weeks on the fire line, my thoughts were consumed by fuel loads, wind shifts, containment lines, and the safety of my crew. When I did manage a brief satellite call, Sarah sounded distant, blaming bad reception. She kept the updates brief: everything's fine, Liam's helping out, just focus on staying safe. The simplicity should have been a red flag, maybe, but exhaustion dulls your instincts for anything beyond the immediate threat in front of you. Then came the email. I was back at the incident command post, grabbing 5 minutes and a lukewarm coffee before the night shift briefing. The subject line was just my name, Nathan. Inside, the words were few, brutally efficient. I can't do this anymore. Consider this goodbye. I've handled the arrangements for the house and finances. Don't contact me. It was signed simply Sarah. I read it twice, 3 times, the clatter and radio chatter of the command post fading into a dull roar in my ears. Arrangements? Handled the finances? It felt unreal, like a message meant for someone else, accidentally routed to my inbox amidst the chaos of the fire camp. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by a chilling surge of adrenaline, colder than any night shift on the mountain. My fingers felt numb on the keyboard of the communal laptop. What arrangements? What finances? Our savings, the equity in the house we'd painstakingly built? Panic started to claw its way up, but years of training kicked in. Assess. Control. Don't react, act. I pulled up our online banking portal, my heart pounding against my ribs. The joint savings account, $47.32. The checking, $112.91. Wiped clean. Transfers made over the preceding weeks, escalating in size. My stomach plummeted. It wasn't just goodbye, it was theft. Calculated, methodical theft while I was literally risking my life miles away. The coldness of it was staggering, more frightening than any wildfire. And the house. What did handled the arrangements mean? My mind raced. A quick search on the county property appraiser's website, my hands shaking slightly as I typed in our address. A sale record, dated just 3 days prior. Sold. To a numbered company I didn't recognize. But a quick search of the company name linked it to a registered agent address. The same address listed for one of Liam's fleeting business ventures. My brother-in-law. He hadn't just helped out while I was gone. He'd helped himself, facilitated the gutting of my entire life, seemingly in concert with my wife. The betrayal wasn't just Sarah's. It was a coordinated attack from within my own family. The ground didn't just vanish, it had been deliberately excavated beneath me. Standing there amidst the hum of generators and the urgent crackle of radios, the world outside the fire camp simply ceased to exist. The smoke-filled air felt thin, icy. My crew chief, Miller, a grizzled veteran who'd seen it all, walked past, stopped, looked back. "You alright, Nowak? You look like you saw a ghost." I just nodded, unable to form words, waving him off. "Yeah, just bad news from home." He gave me that look firefighters share, understanding the weight of bad news from home, when you're miles away and helpless, clapped my shoulder once and moved on. There was nothing anyone there could do. This wasn't a fire we could fight with hoses and shovels. This was something else entirely, something insidious that required a different kind of containment line, one I had to build myself, starting right then, right there. My mind raced, trying to piece together the timeline. The escalating bank transfers, the sudden house sale, Liam's involvement. This wasn't an impulsive decision Sarah made yesterday. This was planned, coordinated, executed with chilling precision while I was distracted, trusting, fighting someone else's battle. How long had this been in the works? Months? Longer? Had our entire marriage been a slow burn leading to this flashover? The late nights she'd supposedly worked, the sudden weekend trips with friends I never met, the increased talk about finances, about feeling stuck. Were these all signs I'd missed, smoke signals I'd ignored because I wanted to believe in the calm facade she presented? The clarity felt like swallowing shards of glass. Using the camp's satellite phone during a designated comms window felt surreal. I wasn't calling home to check in, I was calling my bank's fraud department. The agent on the other end was professional, sympathetic, but confirmed the worst. Multiple large wire transfers initiated online, consistent with authorized access. The house sale proceeds? Likely routed through accounts I couldn't see. He mentioned needing police reports, legal documentation. It felt like trying to build a dam with handfuls of sand while a flood surged towards me. Every official step required me to be there, present, not stuck on a mountainside covered in soot and despair, thousands of miles away from the wreckage of my life. Then I remembered Dave Riley. We'd gone through rookie training together, ended up in different fields. I fought fires, he fought in courtrooms. A sharp divorce attorney now, based back in the city. Finding his number felt like finding a handhold on a sheer cliff face. The satellite connection crackled, but I got through. "Dave, it's Nathan Nowak. You got a minute?" I laid it out, the email, the empty accounts, the house sold to my brother-in-law's shell company while I was deployed on this fire. There was a long pause on his end, the static filling the silence. Then his voice came back, sharp, focused. "Okay, Nathan. First, breathe. Second, document everything. Times, dates, amounts, the company name. Don't contact her or Liam. Not yet. We need a strategy." Strategy. The word echoed the briefings I sat through every morning at fire camp. Assess the situation, identify resources, establish objectives, anticipate the enemy's moves. The enemy here wore familiar faces, wielded trust like a weapon, and hid behind legal maneuvers. Dave confirmed my fears. Untangling the house sale, especially involving a third-party company and potential collusion, would be complex. Proving fraud required more than gut feelings, it required evidence. Bank records, transaction histories, proof of intent, evidence of undervalued sale if that was the case. And the forgery aspect, if my signature was needed for anything related to the house sale or finances, that added another layer. But first I needed boots on the ground. My ground. Getting leave wasn't easy. The Granite Creek fire was still raging, resources stretched thin. But Miller went to bat for me. Showed the incident commander the bare minimum, family emergency, potential financial ruin, needed back stateside ASAP. Mercifully they approved it. Leaving my crew felt like abandoning my post, but my own 5-alarm fire was burning back home, threatening to consume everything. The flight back was a blur of exhaustion, anxiety, and a simmering, cold anger I hadn't let myself feel yet. Landing felt like stepping onto a battlefield, unarmed and unsure of the terrain, knowing the enemy had already dug in and mined the approaches. My first stop wasn't the house. I couldn't face it yet. I checked into a nondescript motel near the airport, paid cash. Then I met Dave at a quiet diner miles from my neighborhood. He slid a folder across the table, his expression grim. "Okay, started digging. The LLC that bought your house? Registered by Liam 3 months ago. Funded by a single wire transfer. From an account opened by Sarah the day after you deployed." He pulled out another sheet. "And this is the preliminary title report. Sold for at least 40% below market value. A cash deal closed in 3 days. They weren't just trying to get rid of it, they were trying to liquidate it fast and cheap, likely splitting the cash before I even knew what hit me." Dave leaned forward. "The speed and the low price are huge red flags for fraud, especially selling to a related party like her brother's company. But we need more. We need to prove intent, collusion." He tapped the folder. "I've already subpoenaed the full bank records for both Sarah and Liam and the LLC. We need to follow the money, see where it went after the sale. And we need to look into the deed transfer. Did it require your signature? Given it was your marital home, almost certainly. Which means? Forgery?" I finished his sentence, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "Very possibly," Dave said. "If we can prove that, it changes everything. It moves from a divorce dispute into serious criminal territory." The scale of it was breathtaking. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a calculated financial assault, potentially involving multiple felonies. Sarah, the calm, organized woman I married, and Liam, the affable, harmless brother-in-law, partners in a conspiracy to defraud me while I was protecting other people's lives. It felt like a meticulously planned demolition, timed perfectly for when I was most vulnerable, most isolated. Dave outlined the next steps: filing emergency court orders to freeze any remaining assets, formally challenging the property transfer, gathering statements, preparing for depositions. The legal machine was slowly grinding into gear, a stark contrast to the fast-moving wildfire I just left. It was clear this was going to be a long, ugly fight, far more complex than I could have imagined standing in that smoky command post reading that devastating email. Retrieving the money, getting the house back, it wouldn't be simple. They had a head start, lawyers likely already retained, stories probably already rehearsed. But as I sat there with Dave, the initial shock began to recede, replaced by a cold resolve. They might have started the fire, but I knew how to fight back when everything was on the line. I wouldn't be outmaneuvered. I wouldn't just crumble. The battle was just beginning, moving from the scorched earth of the mountains to the sterile minefield of the legal system. The legal fight was one thing. Following the money trail led us down paths I never expected, revealing layers of deception that went far beyond just me and Sarah. But the most astonishing chapter of this story was still hidden, buried in encrypted hard drives and coded messages. Keep watching to uncover the full truth behind the fire sale and the conspiracy they thought would stay buried forever. The wheels of justice turn slowly, grindingly slow, especially when you're living day to day in a cheap motel room, your life savings gone and your home stolen. Dave filed the emergency motions, the lease pendants against the property title, the subpoenas. Predictably, Sarah and Liam, through their newly hired, slick attorney, stonewalled. Every request for documents was met with delays, objections, claims of privilege. They were digging in, trying to bleed me dry, hoping I'd run out of money or patience or both. It felt like trying to contain a spot fire that kept jumping the line, forcing me to constantly reassess and redeploy my limited resources, while the main blaze continued to smolder just out of reach. Their lawyer portrayed Sarah as a victim of a stressful marriage, forced into difficult decisions. It was infuriatingly false. Dave finally received the first tranche of bank records for Liam's LLC and Sarah's personal accounts. Poring over them felt like mapping a fire spread, looking for the origin, the pathways, the accelerants. The influx from the house sale into the LLC account was clear. What happened next was murkier. Within days, the bulk of that money wasn't transferred in one lump sum, but siphoned off in a series of structured withdrawals and cashier's checks, all just under the $10,000 federal reporting threshold. Classic money laundering behavior. And the destinations? A tangled web leading to accounts I didn't recognize, some seemingly routing offshore. Liam wasn't just helping Sarah hide assets. He was actively washing the proceeds of the fraudulent sale. Following those trails became Dave's primary focus. He brought in a forensic accountant, Elena, whose mind worked like a fire behavior analyst, predicting where the money would move next based on heat signatures and financial topography. She started unraveling the threads, identifying patterns, cross-referencing dates and amounts. It was meticulous, painstaking work. Some funds seemed to vanish into anonymous crypto wallets, others into newly formed shell corporations with nominee directors. Liam wasn't just an amateur. He had a system, practiced, perhaps. The quick, cheap sale wasn't just panic. It was step one in making the money disappear quickly and cleanly before I even knew it was gone. Meanwhile, the official copies of the deed transfer documents arrived from the county recorder's office. My signature was there, clear as day. Except it wasn't my signature. Close, yes. Someone had practiced. But the pressure was wrong, the slant slightly off, a tremor in the upstroke they wouldn't know I didn't have. Dave had me sign my name 10 times on a blank sheet. Side by side, the forgery was obvious, almost insultingly amateurish despite the attempt at mimicry. This was it. Concrete proof. We immediately filed a formal police report detailing the fraud and forgery, attaching copies of the deed, my real signature samples, and the evidence of the undervalued sale to a related party. The investigation moved from civil to potentially criminal. A former colleague of Liam's, someone Dave tracked down who'd been burned in a previous venture, reluctantly agreed to talk off the record. He painted a picture of Liam as a smooth talker, always involved in deals that promised quick returns, often targeting people in vulnerable situations. He mentioned hushed conversations about using real estate flips to clean cash from other, less savory sources. He didn't know specifics about my case but confirmed Liam had a history of operating in gray areas, often convincing others, like maybe Sarah, to handle the upfront transactions while he managed the back-end maneuvering. He wasn't just an opportunist, he seemed to be a practiced manipulator. This added a chilling dimension. Was Sarah a willing participant, blinded by resentment or greed? Or was she another pawn in one of Liam's larger schemes, convinced by him that I was somehow cheating her and this was the only way to get what she deserved? Did it even matter? She still signed the papers, still emptied the accounts, still potentially forged my name or knowingly used a forged document. Elena, the forensic accountant, meanwhile, found something else buried in the metadata of the LLC's bank statements. Digital fingerprints pointing towards software often used for layering transactions, making them harder to trace. software usually associated with more sophisticated financial crime than a simple divorce asset grab. The pressure began to show. An unexpected email landed in my inbox, not from Sarah, but from her personal account, seemingly sent by accident, meant for Liam. They know about the signature. The lawyer says the police report is serious. What do we do now? It was deleted seconds later, but the notification preview was enough. They were panicking. Their coordinated story was crumbling under scrutiny. Dave advised against responding, using it instead as evidence of their knowledge and intent. It was a crack in their dam, water seeping through, showing the immense pressure building behind their wall of denials and delays. Then Elena struck gold. Analyzing the transaction patterns leading out of those secondary accounts, she found small recurring payments matching property tax installments for 3 other properties in nearby counties. Properties held by different LLCs, but cross-referencing incorporation dates and agent addresses revealed Liam's fingerprints were indirectly all over them. Were these other houses part of a larger pattern? Were there other Sarahs? Other spouses deployed or distracted while their assets were liquidated and laundered through Liam's network. The scope suddenly felt vast, terrifying. This wasn't just about my house anymore. The information gleaned from those property records, combined with the banking patterns and the forgery evidence, started painting a picture far more complex than a marital dispute. Dave believed we might have stumbled onto a serial fraud operation targeting homeowners, potentially using insider information or focusing on situations like divorce or deployment where owners might be vulnerable or distracted. He began drafting motions to compel discovery related to those other properties, arguing they established a pattern of fraudulent behavior directly relevant to proving intent in my case. The air crackled with anticipation, like the moments before a controlled burn jumps the line and becomes something much bigger. This whole ordeal has been a trial by fire, testing limits I never knew I had. If you've ever faced a battle that felt overwhelming or uncovered something shocking hiding in plain sight, hit that like button to let me know this resonates. Sharing these stories, even the tough ones, can sometimes shed light for others navigating their own smoke-filled paths. We were now preparing not just to recover my assets, but potentially to expose a wider conspiracy. The final pieces of the puzzle were clicking into place, pointing towards a confrontation that could either bring justice or see everything go up in smoke. The depositions were scheduled. Dave decided to depose Sarah first. We sat across a polished conference table, lawyers flanking each side. Sarah looked pale, thinner, avoiding my gaze. Her lawyer started with the rehearsed narrative. A woman under duress, overwhelmed, misled by her brother. But when Dave laid out the evidence, the bank statements showing coordinated transfers starting the day I left, the deed with the forged signature presented beside my actual one, the emails showing communication with Liam about the police report, the facade cracked. He asked her directly, point blank, "Did you sign this deed transfer document, knowing it contained what purported to be Nathan's signature?" Her lawyer objected, but Dave pressed. "Did you know it was forged?" Her eyes darted towards her lawyer, then flickered towards me for a split second, filled with fear? Panic? She whispered something inaudible. "Louder, please, for the record," Dave insisted. "I signed it." But Liam said Nathan agreed. He said it was just a formality to protect assets. Her voice trailed off, the lie collapsing under its own weight, the admission hanging heavy in the sterile air. Liam's deposition was next. He swaggered in, all false confidence, his lawyer looking equally smug. They tried the same stonewalling tactics, objecting to nearly every question. But Dave didn't focus solely on my house initially. He brought up the other properties Elena had uncovered, the LLCs, the recurring payments. He presented incorporation documents, bank statements showing faint but traceable links back to Liam, demonstrating a pattern. Liam denied everything, claimed coincidence, flimsy business connections. But when Dave produced the printout of the accidentally sent email from Sarah, they know about the signature. The police report is serious. What do we do now? Liam's composure finally broke. He flushed, stammered, looked at his lawyer who was suddenly scribbling notes furiously. The denial became less convincing, the objections more desperate. The turning point came when Dave presented Elena's findings regarding the money laundering. He detailed the structured withdrawals, the specific software traces found in the metadata, the complex layering used to obscure the funds' origins and destinations, techniques far beyond a simple divorce asset split. He asked Liam point-blank about his knowledge of federal banking regulations regarding structuring and reporting thresholds. Liam paled visibly. His lawyer immediately called for a recess. The confident facade had completely crumbled, replaced by raw panic. It was clear they hadn't anticipated us digging this deep, hadn't expected the forensic accounting, hadn't realized their digital and financial footprints were so clear once someone knew where and how to look. During the recess, Sarah's lawyer approached Dave. They wanted to talk settlement. Urgently. It seemed Liam's potential exposure for financial crimes far beyond just defrauding me had terrified them both. Sarah was likely facing aiding and abetting charges, on top of the civil fraud and forgery implications. Liam was looking at potential federal investigation for money laundering and serial fraud. Their united front evaporated, replaced by self-preservation. Sarah, through her lawyer, offered a full confession regarding her role, implicating Liam as the mastermind who manipulated her, in exchange for my agreement not to pursue criminal charges against her personally, contingent on full restitution and her cooperation against Liam if needed by authorities investigating his broader activities. We discussed it, me, Dave, Elena. My primary goal had always been recovery and justice for what was done to me. Exposing Liam's wider scheme was important, but my personal fight needed closure. We agreed to Sarah's terms with strict clauses. Full repayment of every cent taken from our accounts, plus compensation for the fraudulent equity stripped from the house based on fair market value, plus all my legal fees. The house title would be immediately transferred back to me free and clear. She forfeited any and all claims to any marital assets, including my retirement and future earnings. It was unconditional surrender, driven by the fear of criminal prosecution. Liam, facing mounting evidence and his sister's likely testimony, quickly agreed to a separate civil settlement, contributing a significant portion to the restitution to avoid further immediate legal action from my end, though Dave made sure to forward our findings to the State Attorney General's office and the IRS Criminal Division. The paperwork took weeks, but it was finally done. The money, minus what was irrevocably lost in the crypto ether but largely recovered through the settlements, was wired back. The house was mine again, the fraudulent deed expunged. Walking back into it for the first time felt strange, hollow. The familiar walls seemed tainted by the betrayal. I spent a weekend just walking through the rooms, the silence heavy. I decided then I couldn't stay. Like a uniform contaminated by toxic chemicals, the place held too much bad memory. I needed a clean break, a fresh start on solid ground, not ground that had been stolen and then grudgingly returned. I sold the house 6 months later, this time properly at its true market value. The proceeds, combined with the restitution, gave me options I hadn't had before. I didn't go back to the wildland firefighting crew immediately. The internal firestorm had taken its toll, requiring a different kind of recovery. Instead, I bought a small plot of land upstate, closer to the forests I understood, but far from the ghosts of my former life. I started designing a small cabin, simple, solid, built with my own 2 hands, on a foundation no one could pull out from under me. The workshop hums again, but this time it's for me. Life throws unexpected fires at you. Sometimes they're roaring infernos you can see coming. Other times they smolder silently beneath the surface, erupting when you least expect it, often ignited by those you trust most. Facing it down, digging your own containment line and finding the strength to rebuild from the ashes, that's the real test. It's a slow process, demanding patience and resilience, much like waiting for the forest to regrow after a devastating blaze. You learn to read the changing winds, trust your instincts, and know that even scorched earth can eventually support new growth, stronger and more resilient than before. The fight for truth can feel isolating, like standing alone against a firestorm. If you believe these stories of resilience and fighting back deserve to be heard, consider subscribing or sharing this video with someone who might need reminding that it's possible to rebuild after devastation. Your support helps keep these narratives alive. It wasn't the path I chose, but navigating the wreckage led me here, to a place of quiet strength, ready to build again, one carefully chosen piece of timber at a time, ensuring the foundations are solid, built solely by my own effort and foresight. Looking back, fighting fire taught me about calculating risk, about controlled burns, about knowing when to stand your ground and when to create a firebreak. The betrayal forced me to apply those lessons to my own life. Liam eventually faced legal trouble from other ventures, though I don't track the details. Sarah moved away, starting over somewhere else, I assume. Our paths diverged completely. Mine led here, to this quiet piece of land, the scent of pine in the air, the promise of a new structure rising from the ground, built not on naive trust, but on hard-won experience and the enduring strength discovered when you refuse to let the fire consume you completely.